The rain had been falling since late afternoon, turning the city into a blur of silver lights and slick pavement. People hurried past with umbrellas tilted against the wind, eager to reach warm homes and familiar faces. Inside O'Malley's bar, however, time seemed to move more slowly. Soft country music drifted from hidden speakers while quiet conversations blended with the clink of glasses. Ethan Carter sat alone at the far end of the counter. He wasn't there to celebrate. He wasn't even there to drink much. A single glass of soda rested untouched in front of him, tiny bubbles rising to the surface as he stared at his reflection in the polished wood. His shoulders carried the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept properly in months. At 34, Ethan looked older than he really was. Dark circles framed his hazel eyes, and the faint lines around them spoke of countless nights spent comforting nightmares instead of chasing his own dreams. He checked his phone. 8:42 p.m. No new messages. He smiled faintly anyway. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, would already be asleep at Mrs. Henderson's apartment next door. The elderly widow had become family after Ethan's wife died 3 years earlier from a sudden brain aneurysm. Sometimes he still expected to hear Emma's voice when he unlocked the front door. Sometimes grief played cruel tricks. He reached into his wallet and unfolded a tiny photograph. Emma stood in a sunflower field, laughing while holding a baby Lily above her shoulders. "I made it through another week," he whispered. The bartender quietly slid a bowl of peanuts toward him. "On the house." Ethan looked up. "You don't have to." "I know." The older man smiled kindly. "But you looked like you needed reminding that not everything costs something." Ethan chuckled softly. "Thanks." Across town, the annual executive charity gala had ended an hour earlier. Luxury cars lined the hotel entrance as photographers captured smiling executives dressed in expensive suits and elegant gowns. Among them was Victoria Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Technologies. 40 years old. Self-made billionaire. Named one of the country's most influential business leaders for 4 consecutive years. Employees described her as brilliant. Competitors described her as terrifying. The media described her as the Ice Queen. None of those descriptions mentioned how lonely she actually was. Victoria slipped off her high heels the moment she settled into the back seat of her driver-driven car. "Home, Miss Sinclair?" She looked through the rain-covered window. "No." The driver glanced into the mirror. "Ma'am? Take a different route." "Certainly." She closed her eyes. Another gala. Another 100 forced smiles. Another evening pretending success could replace companionship. It never did. As the car rolled through downtown streets, flashing neon signs reflected across the wet road. Then she saw something familiar. O'Malley's. She leaned forward. "Stop." The driver slowed immediately. "Is everything all right?" Victoria looked through the large front window. There he was. Ethan Carter. Senior Operations Manager. The man who always arrived before everyone else. The employee who never complained. The father who politely declined every company party because he had to get home to his daughter. She had noticed him long before anyone realized she even knew his name. Not because he tried to impress her. Because he never did. While others chased promotions with rehearsed compliments, Ethan quietly solved problems no one else could. 3 weeks earlier she'd overheard him telling human resources he couldn't accept an overseas promotion. "My daughter needs stability more than I need a bigger office." Those words had stayed with her. Victoria rarely admired people. She respected competence. She admired sacrifice. Tonight he looked broken. "Wait here," she told her driver. She stepped into the rain without opening an umbrella. Inside the bar, conversations continued uninterrupted until the entrance door opened. A gust of cool air swept across the room. Several people instinctively turned. Victoria Sinclair wasn't easy to miss. Her emerald evening dress looked completely out of place among denim jackets and work boots. The bartender nearly dropped a glass. Even Ethan looked surprised. He quickly stood. "Miss Sinclair?" She smiled politely. "I hope I'm not interrupting." He shook his head. "No, of course not." She glanced toward the empty stool beside him. "May I?" He nodded. "Please." The bartender hurried over. "What can I get you?" "Sparkling water." He blinked. "That's all?" She smiled. "I have an early meeting." The bartender walked away. An awkward silence settled between them. Finally Ethan spoke. "I didn't expect to see my boss here." "I could say the same." He laughed quietly. "Fair enough." She studied him for a moment. "You look exhausted." "I have a 7-year-old. That explains some of it." "And the rest?" He hesitated. "Life." Victoria understood that answer better than he realized. Outside, thunder echoed across the city. She looked toward the rain. "I used to come here years ago." "You did?" "Before anyone knew who I was." "What changed?" She smiled without humor. "People." He nodded. "I understand." "No, Ethan." She looked directly into his eyes. "I think you understand better than most." The bartender returned with sparkling water. Ethan glanced at her untouched glass. "You really don't drink?" "Not when I'm making decisions." "And tonight?" "I'm trying not to make one." He frowned slightly. "What kind of decision?" She looked away. "The kind that changes everything." He wasn't sure whether she was joking. She didn't seem like someone who joked often. The bartender placed Ethan's bill on the counter. He reached for his wallet. Before he could touch it, Victoria quietly placed her black credit card over the receipt. The bartender hesitated. She smiled. "Tabs on me." Then she turned toward Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you take me home." Ethan froze. For a second he wondered whether he'd imagined it. The music seemed to disappear. Even the rain outside felt strangely distant. He stared at his boss, unable to process what she'd just said. "Excuse me?" Victoria didn't smile this time. "I know exactly how that sounded." I don't." She took a slow breath. "I don't mean what you're thinking." He waited. "My penthouse has been empty for years. Every night I go home to silence. Tonight I realized I'd rather spend an hour talking to someone real than another night pretending loneliness doesn't exist." Ethan remained speechless. She continued softly. "You once told Human Resources your daughter comes before everything." His eyebrows lifted. "You heard that?" "I hear more than people think." He looked down. "I hope that didn't hurt my career." "It may have saved it." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Victoria's expression softened. "It reminded me that character is harder to find than talent." For the first time in years, neither the billionaire CEO nor the struggling single father realized that this chance meeting was about to change both of their lives forever. To be continued with the second half of Part 1.